Unit 1, Part 3. So we've just explained how this argument, even though each of these sentences is itself false, the argument is a valid argument. It is a good argument, because if the premises are true, the conclusion would necessarily be true, right? So here the conclusion does follow from the premises, even though the sentences themselves are all false, right? So that's the first lesson in learning to distinguish the question of the truth of the sentences from the question of the validity of the argument. I'm going to be working from what I say here back into the main teaching of Section 4 of Unit 1, which is on form and validity. Section 5, I said Section 4 and 5 of Unit 1 are the important ones. Section 5 is on truth and validity, and this is the main point that Klenk teaches in that section. Okay, so look at this argument now. Our task as logicians is to ask whether it's valid or not, that is, whether the conclusion does follow of necessity of the premises, whether or not it's possible for the premises to be true and the conclusion false. Notice about this argument, if we ask after the truth value of the premises, right, this says, premise 1, if Dan is Australian, then Dan is a male. Should have written the then in both of these. These are if-then statements. If Dan is made of cheese, then Dan is American. If Dan is Australian, then Dan is a male. Premise 2, Dan is male. Conclusion, Dan is Australian. Dan is Australian, that's true, I am Australian. Dan is male, I am in fact male. If Dan is Australian, then Dan is male. These if-then statements are called conditionals. They'll be a big part of what we do. Conditionals, you will have to get very much in, you have to learn a whole new language. You'll have to learn a whole set of terms. For conditionals, and also symbols, this is symbolic logic. We're getting to symbols already in Unit 2. But if-then statements are written like this, where let's say A, hook M, see that? The hook is going to be the symbolic expression of the conditional, right? And what precedes the hook, that is, what follows the if in the statement, that's called the antecedent, and what follows the hook is called the consequent. Antecedent, hook, consequent, right? And in the English, whatever sentence follows the word if, it's called the antecedent. Whatever follows the word then, or before I wrote then, it was an implicit then. What follows that is the consequent. Conditionals are antecedents, hook, consequence. Okay, so we will learn in Unit 3 or 4 when they talk about the truth values of our sentences that conditionals we're going to treat as true whenever the consequent is true. That's not the only thing we'll say about them, but conditionals will all be true. If the consequent of a conditional is true, then no matter what, we're going to say that's enough, that suffices for making the consequent true. We're reading about that, say, later unit. So here, because I am male, it's enough for if Dan is Australian, then Dan is male. So the truth values are, both premises are true, the conclusion is also true. So here's a thought, hey, since the premises are true and the conclusion also true, that probably means that it's a valid argument, right? Wrong, okay? Not at all, right? Because you have not attended to the most important thing of the definition, which is the modal of a valid argument, which is the modal part, that is the reference to necessity or not possible, right? The phrase not possible in a valid argument is one where it is not possible for the premises to be true and the conclusion to be false, okay? But this argument is such that it is possible for the premises to be true and the conclusion to be false, right? Even though, in fact, in the present world that we live in, I am Australian and I am male, there is a possible world, we might say. We won't be talking a lot about possible worlds, but they're also a part of logic, modal logic in fact. There is a possible world where both those premises, right, all of the premises are true. In this case, there's 2 of them. An argument can have 7 premises. It can have 1 premise. Argument is a set of sentences separated into premises and conclusion. It doesn't say how many premises, but most of our examples will have 2 premises. Always 1 conclusion. So here we have both premises are true, the conclusion is also true, but it's not a valid argument because there is a possible world where the premises are true and the conclusion is false, right? So you can just imagine I am an American male, right? I might be an American male, right? I'm male, it's true that I'm male, this is true. Since I am still male, it's true that if I was Australian, I am American, but if I was Australian, I'd also be male. Maybe in this world, Australia is full only of males. Okay? So that would be a world in which the premises are true. If I'm American, but if I was Australian, I'd be a male. True. I am a male, yes. Therefore, Dan is Australian. No, that would be false in this world. So there we would have an assignment of truth values to the sentences where the premises are all true and the conclusion is false. Okay, that assignment of truth value to sentences gives us a very crucial concept which will be with us for the whole course. It's the concept of a counterexample, right? I'll say what it is, but I'll be introducing more terms that we'll have to then talk about. But in the next part, I'll start introducing the idea of logical form, and the really, really, really central lesson of Unit 1 is that an argument is valid. A particular argument, like a particular meaningful argument, which we're going to be calling an instance of an argument form, but a particular argument like this is only valid if its form is valid, right? So what's an argument form? We'll talk about that. But in talking about an argument form, that will be explicating or making sense of the modal notion of our definition of a valid argument. A valid argument is one where it's necessary that if the premises are true, the conclusion is also true. A valid argument is one where it's not possible for the premises to be true and the conclusion to not also be true. Okay? What do we mean when we say necessary or not possible? I'll elaborate, but it means, the statement of what it means is an argument is valid if and only if its form is valid, and its form is valid if and only if it has no counterexamples. That is, its form is valid if and only if the argument form doesn't have any instances of that form. This is going to be an instance. An instance of the form will be with particular meaningful sentences, English sentences. An argument is valid, an argument form is valid if and only if it has no instances of that form where all the premises come out true and the conclusion comes out false, right? And in a way, the possible world I put forward, where I'm an American male, is a world where this argument comes out with true premises and a false conclusion, that is giving a counterexample to the argument form. It's basically the same idea. All right, I'll come back to the next part and explain, start to explain what the idea of argument form is. But explicating what the form of an argument is really going to be with us for the entire first part of the course, as I shall explain in due time.